Because I think there are lots of Caribbean writers who write across genre, and I've consistently write across genre. So when I went to do my master's degree, I thought I was a poet, and that's all I was going to do and all I was going to be. And ironically enough, in my last year, I was invited to take a short story class, and my first book, that was published in '85, oh my God, what, 30 odd years ago, was a short story collection, which really established me as a writer to my surprise, because I was just kind of writing, and at that time I had no idea what that would mean. So I'm a writer, and there's so many stories in the Caribbean that have not yet been told, and that's why you're here, so you can tell those stories, so others can read those stories and celebrate who we are. Because if we don't celebrate who we are, if we don't write our stories, then we become invisible. You know, and with technology, I don't know about here, but certainly in Jamaica, a lot of Jamaican culture is disappearing because of technology, and the young people are not necessarily interested in what they call old-time ways or country ways, but are also not interested in their stories, the stories that make them who they are. Because of the pervasiveness of technology. So it's really important that you write these stories in an authentic voice and celebrate the joys and the pains and the struggle and the coming into being. Huh? So I designed a workshop many years ago that I taught at the college level. I was in California for many years. And it's called Writing What Writes You. And in a sense, that's what I'm going to do today. Because the premise being that each of us, young lady, what's your name? Miriam. The story that she has to tell is not the story that Adisa has to tell, is not the story that Dimitri has to tell, is not the story that Jackie has to tell, is not the story that Enric has to tell. You each have your own story, and more importantly, you each have stories that have been writing you, and you need to discover them and tell them. And I'm so happy to see you both here. It's wonderful. So on your sheets of paper, I'm giving you 10 things you're going to write about for the next month, but you're going to start right now. She didn't fully get my name. Opal, O-P-A-L, Palmer. I'm going to give you I publicize myself, so I'm going to give you guys a little bookmark that has one or two of my books and stuff. So this activity, you have less than 5 minutes to do it. You're not thinking about it, you're simply responding. Number your page 1 to 10. I'm going to give you a word, and the first word that comes in response to my word, you jot down. You're going to jot down my word as well as the word that comes in response to. Did they come? Oh, please, thank you. I think there's enough. If you what? I had sent it to him via email. It's on my laptop. Well, if you, let me find, you can give me your email. Let me go into my email. Wait a minute. Let me find my email from that I sent him, and then maybe I can forward it to you. Oh, okay. Is there anybody who's working? Okay, let me find what I sent him. Everyone has their paper and pencil or laptop or whatever you write with. So the first word you're going to write down is home, H-O-M-E, and what is the word that comes up for you? Quickly. Whatever comes up, don't question it, don't censor it. Home, what comes up for you? Second word, color, C-O-L-O-R or C-O-L-O-U-R, depending on whether you're doing British or American English. What is the word that comes up for you when you hear color? Stream of consciousness, brainstorming, boom. I'm doing it in order today for some reason, is mother. M-O-T-H-E-R. What comes up for you? Write mother and the word that comes up when you hear the word mother. Everybody got that? Fourth word is tree, T-R-E-E. Whether it's a flamboyant, a mango, banana, you know, whatever tree it is. What's the word that comes up for you? Memory, M-E-M-O-R-Y. Memory is a big part of the Caribbean landscape. It's a big part of our literature. It's what we excavate. It's what we transform in terms of identifying who we are, not just as a colonized people, but as a people who came here with history and knowledge. And then following that is history. What comes for you when you think of history? Whose history are you telling? In whose history are you embedded? What's the history you are inserting? And here's a lovely one that I like, that brings up all kinds of ethical and moral questions. Truth. T-R-U-T-H. Whose truth are you speaking? What is your truth? What is your understanding of truth? What truth have you been told or not told? Next is lie, L-I-E. We live with a lot of lies. Christopher Columbus discovered the world, but the Taínos were here. And they had families, and they had agriculture, and they had systems of government, and they played a game similar to cricket, and all kinds of things. So what are the lies that we've told that we've accepted? Need, N-E-E-D. What is it we need? What are the needs that have not been met? What are the needs we're hoping to be met? What are the needings that become dormant? And the last is yes. Everybody likes a yes? I love a yes. What is your yes? Okay. I'm also one of these teachers who don't take no for an answer. I believe in everybody participating equally. And so, we're going to start with those people who insist on being in the back. The lady in the back with the beige shirt and the pink pants, please tell me your name and read any response from my 10 list. Nice and loud.
My name is Maureen Hodge. My color is black.
Thank you. This young lady here?
Yes, ma'am. Home safe.
Angela Romley, home mother.
Lady in the back in the, yes, greenish, bluish.
Home nostalgia.
Name?
Charlene.
Pedro, I didn't write that. I had to,
You can't come to my class and not write. What that?
I had to shirt and listen as much as possible.
Young lady.
My name is Alexa.
Home is what?
Art.
Beside her?
My name is Melanie, and for history I have learning.
Okay. This young lady?
Good morning, my name is Paula. For home I have sanctuary.
My name is Cheryl, and for mother I have life.
Cedric, home, family.
Arlet, home, Jamaica.
I have yes, validation. Milda, memory, identity.
Marie, memory, dementia.
Jessie, mother, love. Harriet, color,
Color?
green.
Jennifer, tree, and kayak.
Mark, and history, oral.
David, mother, strength.
Natasha, home, love.
Learner, home, comfort. Jackie, yes, future.
Yes, power.
is somebody? Yes, please go.
My name is Evelyn and
Tree is? Alrighty, excellent. Thanks for coming in, young people. I love you, young people, because you're the future writers of our culture and our society. Alright, so I usually start with a brainstorming activity like this in terms of giving you keywords in which to prompt an idea. And what I've actually done for you is I've given you 10 or 9 things to write about for the rest of the month. And I'll explain that towards the end, right? In terms of what that should look like and what that should mean. I want to start with, so these are a few of my collections, 2 children's books, which are my latest collection. I'm very much interested in sharing the culture of the Caribbean. These books were commissioned through the Virgin Islands. I lived there for a while. And this is their national dance, quadrille and qualby, for kids between 8 and 10. And Moko Jumbi, I think most cultures have still dances. Moko Jumbis is Jamaica would say there are duppies, that's another word. But they're considered cultural bearers and icon in the Caribbean, in St. Croix. So those are 2 of the books. This is my latest collection of stories, Love Promise, which came out, and I think there are there are copies of those here, and there's a few copies of this here. It's a collection of stories, 10 stories about 10 different women and the whole notion of promise. What are the promises we make when we're in love, and not just romantic love, but any kind of love? And what happens when we don't keep those promises, or why do we break those promises, or when we forget about those promises? So these stories are that. And then I'll read a few poems from here and we'll get going. This is old, I think it came out in 2013 or something like that, I don't remember. This is a collection of poems, Four-Headed Woman, and it talks about the complexity of a woman's life, who's a mother and a wife and a teacher and an artist, and that she needs 4 heads to function, more or less. Well, actually we need more than 4, but we could get by with 4. And the poems are divided into 4 sections. I was at a conference and a male poet said, "You women are always writing about the domestic space." And I was like, what else is there to write about? So the first section is divided about the domestic space, breads and fruits, which I make statements about. I also was at another conference, this is many years ago, and a man said, "Oh, he's tired of women and that time of the month." Period and menses. So the second section deals with period and menses. The third section, because I think a lot of contemporary women, because we're juggling so much, we're borderline mad, or we have nervous breakdowns and we function through them. So the third section deals with that. And then the fourth section deals with bathroom graffiti, and they're my most experimental and provocative poems. When I was teaching at UC Berkeley in the 90s, no, I don't think there's so much, there were lots of graffiti in the bathroom. Women would write questions back and forth, and there would be responses, and I was intrigued by that. And so those poems come out of that collection. So the very first poem in the collection, Fry Bread, is really dedicated to the indigenous, the first indigenous people, the Tainos or Arawaks or whatever we call them these days. As we learn more, we come up with better names or more accurate names. After they branded her betrayer, she became a vagabond, slinking behind trees, jumping over skeletons. Every time she spat, a story got lost, but for Coyote licking at her phlegm. So that's from that first section, and I'm not going to read anymore because I really want you to write. Then the menses section, PMS advised nurse, indulge red cousin. Hers is but a short stay, 4 days tops, in rare cases, 7 days of hell. Corset her by pampering yourself. Resist not temptation of any kind, especially sweets, chocolate with Brazilian nuts and must. Then the third section, breaking point, nervous breakdown. This is called breaking point 1. The knife slips, severs muscles, finger hangs attached by willowy tissues. An accident, cutting away thoughts, self-erasure. Diurnal stress snaps the mind, a filament of meaning loops until threadbare. The vulgar wound, discolored, swollen, draws loud sympathy. The mind, struggling for meaning, is met with indignation. And bathroom graffiti, let's read one from there. Bathroom graffiti 11. My daughter claims she gets more pertinent information from the restroom walls than in her political science class. She has concluded women are at the forefront of social changes. When I press her on this issue, she invites me on a tour of the second floor women's room at her campus. The moment I enter, I understand what my daughter has been telling me. Slogans are everywhere. Women, if you're in an abusive relationship, get out. Don't allow yourself to be seduced into submission. Control your own life. We have zero tolerance for sexism, racism, animal exploitation, homophobia. Don't sit around complaining. Do something about it. Let politicians be accountable to you. Your tax dollar pays the bastards. We're pissed. We will fight back. Amazed at the force and boldness of the statements, I decide to start a class in bathroom graffiti studies. All right. Writing what writes you. The poems still have not come. I don't know if I can read them from my phone. I know young people do that these days, but I am not so skilled always at doing that. But I will try to pull them from my email, and although it's so much better if you were to read them yourself. And they're being printed? I don't know yet. We don't know if they're being printed? Yes? No? They haven't, what? The email hasn't come through? Okay, is there, maybe I need to sign on to whatever the email connection is. Anyone read it? And do you? I apologize for this. Hey, talk to each other about your writing while we try to figure that out. I really would like to share these poems with you. I published an anthology called Interview in the Caribbean that you're all welcome to submit for. The next issue is going to be on childhood or childhood memories of the Caribbean. And so there are 2 poems there that I'm sharing that have been written by contributors that I really like and I felt was appropriate for the theme of the lesson that I wanted to do today. But we're going to do a lesson today whether or not we can share the poems. But hopefully we'll be able to share the poems. So, is there something you'd like to hear about the whole process of writing in the meantime? Yes, go on, raise a question. You need the mic? Oh, I need the mic. I thought I had a loud voice. Does that work? Yeah, I think I have a loud voice. You know, I'm always being chastised about how loud I am. Quiet down, my mother used to say. Yes, thank you.
I was something writing before in the past. And what I noticed is that sometimes you get scared at what comes out in the initial process and you try to censor. Like, where did this
Brilliant
come from?
question.
This is horrible. Not the fact that it's written horribly, but what it is, the content. Sometimes scary, like, why is this in my mind? This is sick.
Yeah. So here's the thing. When you embark on writing, you have to be willing to go out in the middle of the parade naked. With breasts hanging. I have 3 children that I breastfeed, so without brassiere, the breasts are hanging. With double belly, you know. Writing is vulnerability. And if you're going to do good writing, you you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And secondly, you have to knock the people off your shoulders who are censoring you. Because you're worried about what they're going to think about you, what they're going to say about you, is this story about you, and who the people you love. So for a long time, I loved my mother, right? My mother's dead. I still love my mother. And I was very close to my mother, but my mother would sit on my shoulder and censor me to death because we had different values. There were certain things she thought. My mother was trying to make me a lady, and I never wanted to be a lady. Okay, so that was the first issue. She wanted to be a lady, sit with my legs closed, my hands folded in my lap. That was never my reality. I was a tomboy because I didn't believe I should be restricted by these gender boundaries. So my mother for many years sat on my shoulder, and I constantly had to knock her off my shoulder. And then my community sat on the other shoulder, and I constantly had to knock them off the other shoulder. So this is really a pertinent and important question that was raised here. If you are not willing to be vulnerable, you will never write the stories you need to write. As I said, you have to be willing to go out in the middle of the parade naked and be pleased or proud of the nakedness. And I say to people, there's nothing about my life that's private so that nobody can come and say, la, you know, not Opal, do this or Opal. It's all out there. So it's really important that you don't self-censor, right? I keep writing through it, and I've been writing long enough now, so I don't care. And that helps. Yes.
What did your mother think about your writing? Two different stages or whatever.
Well, particularly my personal writing that talked about sex and pleasure, she was always embarrassed about that, and she read everything. So I have to give her that credit. Bless her heart. She read everything, and my mother had great grammatical skills. Even though I had a PhD and she didn't, she was way better than I. So I always gave her my things to edit in that regard. And there were certain things she would say, I don't think you should share that. But she never said, she always said, I don't think you should. She never said, don't share that, right? And so, yeah, there were some of it that she didn't feel should have been out there, that was proper or decent or ladylike. But she always read it. She read everything. That's one of the things. Of all my family members, my mother, until her death, read everything I wrote and gave me blessings around that. But there were things that she did object to. And I have to admit there were things that I didn't begin to write because I respected her until I was in my 30s. And then by the time I was 40, I was like, I'm my own woman. You know, I might love you, but I'm my own woman. I'm going to write and do whatever I want. And so it's stages. There are certain things you can write when you're 20 and 30, and then there are other things you write when you're 40 and 50. And, you know, I had not thought about writing my autobiography until I was 55, you know, and I've not finished it, but now I feel like I can really tell the truth. And maybe it's because my mother and father are dead. And some of the things that I'm saying, it's not that it's bad, but it happened. So there are different stages in which you can write your truth, but it's really important that you write your truth, whatever that is, okay? I do a lot of pre-writing. So the stories will be in my head for a long time before I actually write them. And I think about them, and the characters live with me for a long time. And I find that usually is with short stories, but I'm even finding that with poetry. I've been writing a collection now, which I hope will be done this year, called Returning to the Return. And I was away from Jamaica for a long time, and I returned. And I wanted to write a series of poems that was just about what it was like to be away for such a long time and to return. And to my surprise, a lot of the poems started and stayed with me in the head. Usually with poetry, I get a line and I run quickly to write it down and to capture it in fear that I would lose it. But as I get older, even though I might not remember my own name, I will remember the idea, the genesis of the poems. And so the poems and the stories live with me for a very long time. Any other questions or so? or comments.
How
Yes.
did you feel when your mom read all of the stories?
How did I what?
How did you feel when mom read all of the stories?
Once I wrote them, I felt okay. So
No. How you felt when mom?
I know, I hear your question, but what I'm saying to you, the fact that I was brave enough to write them and share them with her, I was okay, even when she didn't approve. Because I felt there was an authenticness of the story that had to be preserved, and so I didn't feel bad or whatever. I was willing to talk to her about why I felt. I wrote a poem, you guys know these words, you know, out of respect for these children. So in this, I want to read it. How did I feel when my mother read this poem? So the bathroom graffiti poem, when I finished writing the bathroom graffiti poem, I realized that I hadn't written a poem about my first experience of bathroom graffiti. And so I was thinking back to when was the first time I remember seeing graffiti in the bathroom, and I realized that it was when I was in elementary school, right? And so this is it, Introduction to Bathroom Graffiti. And I'm at the stage now at my life, almost, well, I am actually this year, 60, blessed life, feeling good, where I don't really care, you know. So, but there's always been a level of irreverence in my poems, because I always feel that Caribbean people have exacted this kind of Elizabethan value, and we're kind of like, you know, come on, it's life, it's part of life. Anyway, long introduction for the poem. Introduction to Graffiti. On the first day of 3rd grade, after lunch, I went into the toilet, the 3rd stall, like always. I don't know, do people go to the same stall in the bathroom? I always go everywhere I am. Even I realize if I go to in the airport, I go in the middle stall. That's just me, you know, or in the middle stall. Some people go to the end, I go to the middle stall. Mr., you have my poems?
Yes, I do. I get to give them to somebody to bring up here. We are not saying the first. Sorry.
Please distribute them.
I need to apologize. I did 20. I have not with problem.
Yes, you have it. Well, you know what? The lady went downstairs. I forget her name.
I'll go
Makes
get
up
her.
4. So tell her we have 20, but how many people we have in here? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19, 20. We have about 40 people, so we need 20 more.
20 more?
Yes.
How do I start?
Just give up. Just give up. All right. Listen up, people. Listen up. Listen up. Listen up. The workshop is still going on. Introduction to Graffiti. On the first day of 3rd grade after lunch, I went into the toilet, the 3rd stall, like always. I noticed on the back of the clean door, written in pencil, so small it appeared as a mark, I had to squint to read it. Pussy. I peed, then reread the word again. Pussy. Was someone speaking about my private part, concealed between my legs, that place my mother always made sure I kept hidden? Put your legs down, close your legs, don't climb the trees without shorts, pull down your dress. My cho-cho, my little girl thing. Was someone looking under my dress like those rude boys crouching by the stairs? I ran my fingers over the words until it was erased. A black smudge remained. Each day I inspected the cubicles to see which ones had been baptized. Written on the wall behind the toilet on the farthest cubicle in block letters in blue ink, P-U-S-S-Y, like an abstract painting, concealed in a heart shape. A month later, the entire back door was covered with pussy, pussy in pen, pussy, pussy, pussy in crayon, my pussy written in cursive. He sucked my pussy, sloppily scribbled with a glancing word on the road, pussy, pussy in large letters. He feels up my pussy, pussy, ugly pussy in small, neat script. Not pussy, someone X'd out, but pum-pum. My pum-pum. written in even, elegant hand, and diagonally across the wall in red ink, P-U-S-S-Y is dangerous. P-U-S-S-Y is sweet. Your mama's pussy. Pussy. My mother did not like that poem. My mother did not think I should publish that poem. My mother thought this would be offensive and outrageous, and I was her daughter, and she had raised me to be a lady. How dare me even write that poem? But I loved the poem, and I said, Mommy, it's going to be published. And there you have it, people. So censorship is important, but you have to speak your truth, right? And some of the truth, as you say, is not pretty. Our lives are not always pretty. And it shouldn't be pretty. Plus, I think that pussy poem is very pretty, actually. I actually like that poem. And was glad I thought about writing that poem. So there are things you think you want to write because you want to liberate yourself, because you want to de-mask the masking that we've done around a lot of issues about our bodies. We've made our bodies ugly, we've made our bodies wrong, and they're not, you know. So there are lots of things that you need to do as women, as men, as children, that gives you, sorry, let me turn this off, I should have. There are lots of things that you want to write that might not necessarily please your mother or your father or your friend, and people might think about you a certain way, but you have to decide if this is an important truth, then you have to tell that truth. Okay, so, you have the poems? I'm going to borrow them because I don't have them. I'll give it back to you. So those of you who have poems, if you don't, share until you get your own. The writing activity, and we're running out of time and I need to give you time. This is the land. So the Caribbean landscape is not just a geographic plane. The Caribbean landscape is a historical plane, is a memory plane, is a color plane, is a fauna plane. So all of the words I gave you at the beginning, for the people who came in late, I gave 10 words, and then you were to pre-associate those 10 words. Home, color, write it down quickly if you just need. Home, color, mother, tree, memory, history, truth, lie, need, and yes. And I'll tell you more about that. So these poems, in my estimation, look at all of these things that we are as Caribbean people. And I usually, does somebody want to read it? I usually invite someone, even though you haven't had a chance to look at it, to read these poems, so it's not just my voice. So Yvonne is going to read one, and then I want someone to read Island Girl Blues. Someone volunteer quickly. We don't have time to waste, so you don't have time to be shy. Just get over this shyness, huh? Okay? So we have someone who's going to read Island Girl Blues, and then I'm going to read my own, When. All right, go ahead, please. Maybe you want to come up here? Thank you. This is Yvonne Meeks, a friend, a writer, and she's also launching her wonderful collection of poems, Nomads.
This is the land. This is my homeland, formed itself by its own self, relegating Columbus's discovery to drunken sailor's delusion. This land caught up in its own dust storms, hurricanes, earthquakes, wet clay into blue mountains, archipelagos, swaying palm trees, whipped cream atop azure waves. This is the land, the heaven, hell, lanes, footpaths, foliage covered, shortcuts on top of a shifting sense of solidity that survivors on stilts have no choice but to walk on, to survive on, to nurture succeeding generations. This is the land, waves and stronger waves crashing against historical breaker walls, against tales of conquerors displacing conquerors, tales of war, bounties of flotillas of slave ships, tales of an unquenched urge for freedom, attempts fraught, attempts punished and attempts again to break chains around. This land swallowing up, recreating itself, a mento, a ska, a rocksteady, a reggae, dance hall explanation of its health. The hips of this land upon the heads of its people, gyrating in celebration, in worship of time, space, other dimensions, remembered but forgotten. This land that you are so crazy to accompany me to hang out in a hammock, drink beer, smoke weed. You even adopted the hurt of a poor child's once. But this land stretches beyond the ambiances of a vacation. And this land can shake you real hard. Shake up to your victorious state. This land of dreams short-lived, lives gone before they were even lived, and tears I can't make a stop to shed. Tears you will have too, but also the need for a comfortable seat to cry in. This is the land you might not have fully stood my musing about, whose sharp edges chiseled out Marley and his songs, molded Jimmy Cliff's "The harder they come, the harder they fall." This is the land whose lyrics you might be mistaken in dancing to, but whose stories are continuous chapters of liberation from your world. So, I have to travel alone to this land, rolling fields of memories, dreams and aspirations. This land and my longing, the ability of words to explain to you why you can never accompany me to this land.
We believe it. That's our hope. Thank you very much. Okay, so the way I teach is about feeling, is about what sticks out for you. So very quickly, when you, having heard the poem, some of you were following it, what is it that you heard? What is it that you felt? Quick.
Pride.
Nostalgia, pride, what else? A longing. What else did you hear? Anybody? What else did you feel?
Music.
Did it, Life? What did it make you think about? So in the back?
Freedom.
Culture. All of those,
Barriers.
Yes, all of those things are embodied in this poem. And it speaks to the texture and the timbre of the Caribbean, its contradiction, its beauty. You know, I look out and the beauty is so breathtaking. And yet, you know, behind this beauty or included in this beauty, there are other things that are not so breathtaking, right? So the poem creates that kind of landscape for you, but the impulse of, what would you say is the overriding mood of the poem? What would you say was that? What is the strong, dominant mood? Pride? And what else? Anything else? So there's certainly that sense of pride, but I think for me there's also that sense of this beautiful place, that pain, this beautiful place that others see, and there are all of these other different sides that are reflected in the music, reflected in the topography, reflected in the experience. And the last line is a killer. Could you read the last two lines for me, please? Go ahead, nice and loud.
This land of my longing, the ability of words to explain to you why you could never accompany to this land.
Right? So obviously the poet is speaking to someone who is not from the land and is trying to give a sense of the land and saying, you can't come with me, and why can't you come with me? You wouldn't understand it the way that I have lived it and that the way it is. The richness and the complexity of it. Young lady, please come. Thank you. The next poem, Island Girl Blues.
Island Girl Blues. Today's salt water calling you like a devil. It begs you to strip to your berries. Let the sun drip its hot, succulent light. over your brown body. Today, you want to be taken in. You want to forget. You're given names and become blue and listless. Unzip your mind from its corset of thought. Submit to the swallowing tide. Search through your blood, your heart shores. A wilderness of waves, rabid with longing. Today, you would relinquish lungs. Trade in your skin for the glitter of scales. Batter your bones to make it perpetual drift. Today is what Exodus is made of, the walking away that is really an inevitable. Walking towards, because hunger, because the sea is no longer distant lover, and your body is made mostly of water, and is thirsty for whom? Because you there love danger, liquid caress, the kind that leaves its salt all over you, that wrecked your days with unquenchable want, because the water knows your name, and when it calls, by God, you answer.
Thank you. I love that last two lines, the last stanza. The kind that leaves its salt all over you. Salt is such a key element of the Caribbean, not just because of the sea, but all of what salt entails, that wrecks your days with unquenchable want, because the water knows your name, and when it calls, by God you answer. I mean, that's good stuff for me. That's really great stuff, because we all came through the water. You know, we talk about the Middle Passage, or we don't talk about it anymore, because we've arrived, supposedly. But the Middle Passage is who we are. And it's still, the world and us here is still so young that the memory of the sea and the salt that both burned us and bombed us is still very much in our skin. And we are surrounded by the sea. You know, and it speaks to our colonialization, why we are not the masters and the leaders in oceanography and solar power. Because we should be. Because we have it. And because we've traveled through its belly to be here, and we're here still standing firm. Talk to me about this poem. What are the images that come up for you? What are the things that it solicits, the memories?
Nakedness.
Nakedness. Other people, come on, we're here together.
Longing.
Longing. Young people who are taking exams and have to analyze poems. We're not asking for the metaphors and the alliteration and all of that stuff. You know, the symbolism and the denouement. We're not asking for that. We're just asking how it hits you, what it makes you think about, what you feel. Seduction. People in the back. Escape.
It's an invitation to be vulnerable.
An invitation to be vulnerable. All of those things. And what's the dominant image? The water, right? And how can we transform ourselves to be more surviving like fish? Huh? All right. So we're going very quickly. When, which I will read. It's a new poem. I think the first draft. I wrote it just when I was in St. Croix a few days ago. I was thinking about it. I've been thinking about it. When the sky blinked, then sneezed, woman rolled out unbruised, looked around, curious, rose on the ball of her feet, fingers brushing the clouds. She was not yet tested the power of her voice. When the sun flamed open, more brilliant than any other stars, woman felt her body radiating, and a truth potent as the night attached itself to her being. She knew what the earth was missing: water. She spat, and the ocean swelled blue and determined, and woman smiled. When the wind folded her arms and emancipated the butterflies, woman felt an ache in her groin. Touching herself, she looked up at the breadfruit tree in time to catch the ripe fruit. She bit into it, then went to sleep for many, many months. When woman finally woke up, severe pain in her lower back and abdomen forced her to squat, and from between her legs a new human was birthed there, as raw as flesh sliced with knife, as perfect as perfection unmatched. And this is my creation story. So, we know one of the creation stories we have is from the Bible that says a woman is from a man's rib. I never did believe that story. My mother and I got in a discussion about it when I was 12. And I said, there's no way in hell or heaven that I was from a man's rib. And so this is my creation story. Only woman could have brought it to the earth. You know, the patriarchy took it over and write their own story, their own myth, and gave it to us and we swallowed it. But the truth is, it's woman. What are you going to write? All of these poems, well, I should be very fair and say, what did the poem make you think about? What were some of the things that came up for you in this last poem? And you need to be honest regardless of the fact that it's mine.
The power of the woman.
Strength, the power of the woman. What else? Anything else? The goddess, yeah. Female power, the birthing and the creation of the world. These three poems hinge on the geography of the Caribbean, right? All of them are about memory and creating or creation. And the way in which we look at that, the way in which we interrogate memory, because memory is selective. So my sister and I lived in the same house until we were, I think, 20, because we lived at home even for college. And her memory of some of the same incidents are so different from mine. I wonder if we live in the same house. And I don't know how many of you have that experience, yes. Right? So memory is always selective. It depends on who you are, whether you're the baby, I was the baby, or you're the oldest, she was the oldest, you know, or you're the middle child. But memory is selective, and we remember things depending on what we're feeling and how we're feeling in life. Some people, their life story is always sad. And other people, their life story is always happy. And some people, it's a little sad and it's a little happy. But what you need to understand as writers is that you are creators. You are the authority. You determine the trajectory of the story, the movement of the story, where the story goes, how you want to tell it. It's an enormous power, you know, and gift to be able to imprint, and I didn't realize that when I just started writing, to be able to imprint on someone's mind your reality. I was going, I don't think I've written about this, I should write about this. Anyway, I was on a plane going somewhere after my first short story collection came out. And one of the stories in it is called, what is it called? I think it's, oh God, it's just a long time. It's been 30 odd years. Is it Widow's Walk? I don't remember. I think it's Widow's Walk. Anyway, I was on the plane and I was sitting beside this woman who was in college and they were reading the book in college. And anyway, we started to talk and she realized, oh, it's you! And she read me the riot ad. Why you make this little boy die? I cried how you could kill him like that. And I think that was the first time I understood the impact that a writer, even though I've been reading and I've been having those experiences, you know, you read and you laugh out loud and people think you're crazy, or if you're like me, you cry, you know. I think it was the first time I realized the impact a story or literature have on someone. So this woman had never met me, had never been to the Caribbean, but was reading the story about this little boy who dies in one of my stories and was so torn up by it that when she saw me, a year after reading the book, she chastised me on the plane. So I'm saying this to say, you have to understand the power your words have on people and the way in which you can have your truth impact them in positive or negative ways. And if you think about the poems and the stories you've read, then you probably can identify with that. Writing is the most powerful tool we have at our disposal at this moment in the Caribbean. It is the most powerful tool we have at our disposal at this moment in the Caribbean to transform and to create the kind of society we want? Huh? Because I believe, and I think I've lived long enough and I've had enough experience, I believe that our words can transform the reality. And that if we write the right words enough and believe them and work towards them, then that can become our reality. So I remember, again, another story, and then we're going to go. What's the time? You got to keep me on track here, people. Oh, God. We might be a little late, but anyway. One last story. I forget now where I was going with this. I forget the story. Maybe I wasn't supposed to tell you. Thank you, young man. But I keep remembering the kinds of things. I was teaching African American literature, and my students at Berkeley said, "Oh God, Professor, the literature is so depressing. All the books I had selected, you know, they were so sad and depressing. They didn't want to read it because I said to them, why it is you don't want to read?" And then I realized that a lot of it was depressing, and who the heck want to read all of that depression? You know, you don't want to read Dostoevsky forever, you know. And a lot of our literature is so negative and depressing. So the next semester I did a course on African American literature, love in literature, and I was hard pressed to find works that celebrated love. But you know, the only reason we are here is because of love. But somehow we don't write about it. You know, not just sexual love, but we have had to love who we are and what we are to be still here, because we weren't meant to be still here. And so even when you're writing about the difficulty, you have to remember to write about the love. So what you're going to do, for those of you who came late, you're going to have to do something else. You're going to make it up. And it's all about making it up. Writing is about fabricating. Even when you're writing from the truth, you are making it up, and it becomes the truth. So I remember people saying to me, is this story true? Well, some of the stories are not true, but they're true by the time I finish them. They're true by the time I finish them. Every bit of it is true. Because, you know, it's that magic. All right, so on your list, you had 10 words that I gave you at the beginning that you reacted to. I want you to select one of those words. And you're going to use my format, because formats are easy in terms of poetry workshops. When? Or a phrase like that is a refrain, right? So each stanza or each paragraph would begin with that refrain, the word that you're starting with. So give me, what did you put for home? Family. So let's say he decided to write family, about family. His poem would be family, blah, 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 family, blah, 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 right? And what word would you pick? Trust. So she for need, was that what word did I give you? When I gave her lie, she had trust. So she would start off with something about trust, and the trust would be the refrain or would be the image that keeps the thing going. And I'm going to give you 20 minutes, and then we're going to share 6 to 7 of these. Begin to write. You could write a poem or a little story. And you can't leave. Don't want to sit down here and don't write it up. Don't do that to me, because then it is not successful and you have wasted your time and my time. Write something even if it doesn't seem to make sense to you. Put the pen or the pencil on paper and write. Let me tell you something. It's an activity. For years I taught creative writing on the master's level, right? And every class, my students, the first 15 minutes they would write. And I would say to them, start the pen moving and don't stop it for the next 15 minutes. And by the end of the 15 minutes, every single one of them, every time, came up with something that was useful. Right. Young lady, you had a question?
Start the word.
Start with the word that you had.
Okay.
So for those of you who came in late, I'm going to give you the words again really quickly. So I gave you 10 words. No, the word that you, not the word that I gave you. You start with the word that you picked with the association, right? So for those of you who came in late, very quickly, the first 10 words were home and whatever your response to. Color, whatever your response to. Mother, whatever your response to. Tree, whatever your response to. Memory, whatever your response to. History, whatever you respond to. Truth, lie, need, yes. And then from this list of 10, not the 10 words I gave you, your response to the 10, you're selecting one word that you're going to use as the refrain in what you're writing now for the next 10 minutes. If you have questions, hold up your hands and I will come around. But basically, I want you to pause for a minute, sorry. Let's take a collective breath from our diaphragm. Just breathe in and let it out. I don't think you're doing it good enough. Let's do it again. Really, really. Let's clean it out. Huh? So take a nice deep breath from here. Your gut, your belly. Breathe in. Pull it out like a balloon. It's okay. And then blow it out. And just, relax your shoulders. Stretch up your arms. Relax. Writing is a process. Okay? Do a little twisting. Stand up if you need and shake your legs. And get into it. Then get quiet now. Quiet, quiet. I've given you the time. We're going to stop at 10:30. It's now 10:13. Some of you write quick, some of you write slow. It's all right. There's no time anything. 6 people, 3 from this side and 3 from this side, come up and share, and we'll talk a little bit. I'll talk a little bit about the process and how you go forward. Because for me, it's not just about this. This is quick and hurried. It's what do you do next and how do you continue? And how do you go back and reshape what you've started and not abandon it? Which we're so often doing. From over this side, 1, 2, 3. And maybe we'll get to 4, we'll see. So while we get it together, we're going to start with what is this, right? And then left. So let me just say a couple things as a preface. What I've always said to my students, and usually when I do my creative writing class, my students get to write every class for 15 minutes, and then I give them an assignment or a prompt that they also have to write every day, not every day, twice a week for the semester. And so they end up with a lot of things. You have to end up, if you want to do a book at about 250 words, you have to end up with about, 250 pages. You need about 400 pages. Because you're going to have to cut back, as you go about shaping. So you want to spill. You want to put out as much as you can so that you have stuff to go through and spill. And there's a discipline. Now, I'm not a disciplined writer, as I am prescribing to you to be disciplined, but as a start, certainly my discipline came from school. Someone like Derek Walcott, the great St. Lucian poet, was a very disciplined writer. Wherever he was, wherever, he always had a specific time every day in which he wrote. And there are some writers who are like that. I tend to write every day myself, but not necessarily on paper. I store a lot of stuff in my head, and then I get a mad time, which is why I've always been in teaching during the summers. And I remember when I was working on, I think my second novel, working for 80 hours a week. Just doing that. Not taking care of children. They were off to my sister. Not taking care of the house. And ladies, and maybe there's some men too, do not, I cannot underscore it enough, do not use housework as an excuse not to write. Let the damn dishes pile up. Let the clothes funky up the house. Take the time you need to write. Do not let your domestic life eat and rob you of your writing time. As women, we tend to do that. We gotta wipe somebody's nose, somebody's bottom, we gotta spread the sheet, starch the shirt. Do not do that. The most important thing for us to do at this time, at this point in the Caribbean, is to write our stories. And it doesn't matter if somebody gonna say, Lord, she have a nasty house. Before we couldn't even find a glass. They're all dirty. I have 10 glasses, so if they all get dirty, I'm piling in the sink, I'm okay with that. I never used to be. For many years, I was like, oh God, a glass couldn't even be in the sink. No, they pile up. I figure, I got 10, it's me alone, I got plates, it's me alone, they can all pile up. So don't allow your domestic life to rob you of your writing time. That's really important. That you give yourself that time and you honor it. That you find the activity and the space that nurtures the writing. So for me, it's hiking and walking on the beach. Whenever I want to develop a story or a poem, I need that time and space. And sometimes I find I'm sitting on my veranda and I'm looking at the amazing mountains in Jamaica. And it's like, where did the 2 hours go? You know, and it's okay because you do need that downtime. This is your first draft. It might not even be a completed draft, huh? It's an idea. It's an idea that's churning, that's spilling, and you want to get back to this idea. Can I have a promise that you're not going to abandon this idea that you've started today? Can I have a promise? I see one hand. I see 2 or 3 hands. No other promises? Come on. How many people here? Come on. I promise. All right, my 3 readers come up. 3 readers come up. Come on. The 2 young ladies, come on up. So what I want you to tell is your name and say what was the prompt that you used and what was the word. Okay? All right, go ahead, please. Nice and loud.
The prompt was color. My reaction or association was purple. And the piece is this. Purple makes my skin itch. Purple makes my skin itch and break out into sand. Sand at someone else's feet. Sand washed away. Purple sand castles with mannequin royalty. Keep feeling the breeze, hot and smoky. Purple bruises, bruising eyelids of a fish, boiled, fried, whole, claws in his body, claws for foreign mouths and closing throats. Purple clouds, a rebellious sunset, stealing color from the ocean, stingy with tears that refuse to touch the sand dunes, dust from an urn, speckling the landscape.
She left her house this morning. Do you think she knew she was going to be writing about purple and sand and earth? But the poem, what is writing her is always writing her, and you just have to keep in touch and get in tune to what's writing you. Number 8. Say your name.
My name is
No, they can't get it back, so you're going to have to project.
My name is Evelyn, and I chose color, and my word is rainbow. Rainbow comes after the cloudy skies and the crying clouds. A sea of color bright and beautiful fills us with the joy of sight. Red, pink, blue, green, purple, yellow, all beautiful. Rainbow, a wonderful sight to see, even without a spot of gold at the end, a pot of gold at the end, basking the world with its colors. Rainbow, the one being dreamt of, sliding down its long and semi-circle shape, wanting to feel the wind through your hair as you finally touch the ground. Rainbow, Rainbow, maybe one day we'll have our chance to write you at your fullest potential, but only possible in our greatest dreams.
Lot of gold, all right. Yes. Wasn't working before, okay. And do not cover your beautiful face with the book. Thank you.
Today my poem is entitled Love, and it was associated with mother. Love is like a rose blowing in the wind. We try to keep it close and always hold it in. Love is a feeling we show to one another, and that keeps bringing us close to our lovers. Love should be kind, and that we shouldn't mind. It is a friend in need, so please plant it like a seed.
For me, what this activity should say to you is how much is right there waiting for you to attend to it. How much is right there waiting for you to write it, right? And it's not that the three of them are perfect, but they're brilliant first beginnings. And then how do you expand the notion of rainbow? Where else does the rainbow take you? Where else does this wonderful piece about purple and the sand at someone's feet and the urn connect you? Where else does that poem about mother and love, the underbelly of it and the side of it, take you? So there are numerous ways in which you can expand and delve into that, and I want to encourage all three of you to do that. Where are my three readers from over this side? Please come forward.
My name is Barbara. I use prompt history, and my word is truth. Truth about our past is there. It is written, it is recorded, but sometimes it is hidden and locked in vaults, and even the key to that vault is not easy for us to get. Sometimes we have to pay to get the key that unlocks the truth about we. Truth is there, but our thoughts, our experiences, our prejudices, they alter the truth in our mind. So even though it is the same truth, our collective story, when we tell it differently. And we believe different things. And each of us tells our truth. Truth about politics, truth about how much we hate our mother, even though people tell us never to say that, because that truth can be changed by us, not by her, and the realities of her being. They tell us it's okay to hate an absentee father, because fathers are hateable. But mothers created us. So maybe we misunderstood her way of love, because all mothers love their offspring, they tell us. So rewrite what they say, rewrite that truth. Truth is waiting for us to use it, to love it, to fight with it, to laugh with it, waiting for more truth to be birthed from it. It doesn't have an end, so no matter how far back we look, we probably won't find its beginning. But we trust, because it's our truth.
Amen.
Hi, good morning. I'm Nathan, and I'm gonna read a piece for you. The word that inspired me was home, and my word is warm. Warm was when she lay on the bed, legs spread wide, stomach high like the rolling hills of Zion, on white sheets with braided hair, staring up at me, pure love and pain. Warm was the squeeze of my hand as contractions ripped her, and the blood filled my fingertips as water rose in her eyes. And all I could do was say, honey, breathe, I love you. Warm was the feeling that swelled in my gut as excitement and anticipation of this being we had named and longed to see. I hope she will be as beautiful as her mother. Warm was the feeling as my blood pulsed harder and harder as she peeked her head out to see the world, emerging like an oiled bird from the reeds, through the reeds, sliding slowly, worming her way out. Warm, make her warm, faster. She looks cold and blue, warm her please, rub her, rub her. Now she is warm. Warm brown color radiates. She wails and is whisked away. My eyes settle on my love. Her toil bears a beauty and she rests weary of her work. Warm the first time my love holds our joy and feeds her. Our eyes meet again and the space around us is warm. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Minerva Martin. The prompt was memory, and I reflect back on my childhood days in Aruba. Memory for me is growing up in a village on Aruba. I remember playing marbles, hide and seek, and basketball.
My friends, Malvina, Cheryl, and I playing cards on the porch, eating mondongo soup and drinking mommy. Memory, how I felt receiving MVP player in basketball. My coach and fellow players were applauding for me. I felt great seeing my picture in the newspaper the following day. Memory for me is my first boyfriend walking me to school, holding my school bag, talking about family, friends, and movies. Memory of my mom cooking her delicious fish and fungi and making lime juice. Memory of my father reading his books and entertaining his friends with rum. Memory of my brothers and I looking at TV and making jokes.
You really need a fourth person?
Go on, read.
All right, my prompt came from history, and I chose bottle houses. Recently, I saw a movie, and in it, there was a story about a bottle house, someone who lived in a bottle house. So, it's not my truth, but my recent thoughts about bottle houses. This place was home for many after slavery. There was no bagged cement, no blocks. There were sticks and mud only to slab onto them. Brown sticks and white plaster made from the limestones found near the water. Mother was happy to have a place to shelter her children and herself, and when her man or husband would come her to finish building it, Mother would be happy and smile. She could find shade from the sun and rest after a hard day's work. She could put some covering on the hard dirt floor to sleep at night. No concrete floor, no ceramic tiles to decorate it, or then, if she was lucky to have 2 rooms. In the course of the day, the hard yard broom would be used to brush the leaves from the trees, the almond tree on which she would sit eating and pounding all the almonds. And that's as far as I got.
So here we have, and in the Caribbean, of course, as is said in the poem about truth, is mothers are revered, and so you can't talk about bad mothers, but we know there are many bad mothers, as well as there are many good mothers. And so how do you get to your truth and maintain the integrity of your truth so people can hear you when you're writing about a topic or a subject or an area that people don't necessarily want to acknowledge in the Caribbean? So I want to thank you for that. You were second? Or yeah. Warm, and having birthed 3 children, and knowing what that experience is, but also the very details, the way the warmth and the child's head coming through, and the connection between you and the mother, very visceral and very vivid and very, very engaging. Your piece about memories and the various memories, and I heard some people in the audience who could identify with the things that she was talking about, the images and the experiences. And again, validating our lives, is so important that we validate our lives and also that we inscribe it so that the future generation understands what it was like back then. And then your piece about bottle house, which you started off with a disclaimer, and describing it, and the way in which our imaginations, and we have a right to our imaginations, that's the thing. Sometimes we don't give ourselves permission for the right for our imaginations to go where it needs to go, and for us not to control the journey, and I hope you finish that. So please thank them and thank the other team. I want to thank each of you for being willing to be vulnerable, each of you for willing to speak and write your truth. And as I said, there are 9 other things for you to write. So those other 10 or 9 responses. I want to just do a short little excerpt from one of my stories. It's called Living Roots. And I write realistic stories, and I write stories that they call magic realism, because the critics are not familiar with the Caribbean. I've always had problems with that term. It sounds romantic and highfalutin. What is magic realism? Well, for us, when they talk about magic realism, they're talking about our reality, and they don't understand that our reality is not just linear and one-dimensional. My mother and other people believe in duffies. That was not magic realism, that was their lived experience. It was part of the whole notion of honoring your ancestors and understanding that somebody might die, but it doesn't mean that they're separated from you. They could dream you, they could give you messages and stuff. But anyway, this is a story that is considered magic realism. It's called The Living Roots, and I'm just going to read two paragraphs on it. Dusk skipped in like a woman in haste to meet her lover. The sun, hiding behind the mountain, was the only witness as Essence's head emerged flat from the side of the cotton tree. She knew as soon as the air hit her face that she should have waited until night had crept in like a man returning from a clandestine affair, but she was impatient. She had told Tuba, who claimed the Maroon leadership after her father died, that they had been too long underground. The pilferous layers, although a safe haven for them, was only meant to be temporary. He saw her advice as a challenge to his authority. He believed that perhaps Essence, as daughter of the past leader of one of the most formidable Maroon colonies, felt she should be the heir. But Essence was only amused by Tuba's masculine insecurity. She loved being a reconnaissance scout and had no ambition to be a leader. She had witnessed firsthand the challenges and sacrifice her father had made and understood how leading and trying to be everything to everyone had worn him down. Essence put aside her reverie as she heard footsteps and squatted behind the tree, making sure she was out of sight of the voices. She had not yet mastered this human form, which she hated, not because it was ugly, but because the enslaved world always infuriated her with its control of human labor and restriction of their movements, a complete degradation of the human spirit. Anyway, so that's just a little part of the last story in this collection, which is called The Living Roots, in which I look at an alternative to a maroonage. Now, not just runaway, but the ability to live underground. So you have a few minutes for questions and response in terms of how did it feel. I mean, and perhaps many of you have already done this kind of stuff where you go to a workshop and you're motivated or you're prompted to write, which is, for me, the best thing about a creative writing program. Because for those people who are not disciplined, it gives you the discipline because you're forced to do assignments. And then hopefully after you finish the program, you will continue to do practice, the art of writing. So let me get some feedback in terms of the process for you, get some feedback about what came out that you were surprised was there, waiting to be given life and given voice. Anybody? No questions? We're good? Yes?
Why is this book very essential for the community? Why is this book fair essential for the community and the region? And please explain why.
Okay, that's a question for the man in the back, but I will attempt to answer it. First of all, a celebration of books, which is a celebration of our life and culture, is important for the region, is vital. It's important that we hear each other's voices and we celebrate each other's voices. It is important because I still think that implicit in writing and reading is knowledge building, knowledge production, and I don't think there's enough of us in the Caribbean who understands the power of that and why that is vital to development. So the more educated we are, the more that we have a mass of educated people who are thinking. You see, for me, one of the things that Book Fair prompts is your reading and your analysis. Cultural production is very important. And so I would say this is why it's important. It's important that, one, you begin to understand that even though I'm from Jamaica and this woman is from Aruba or Antigua, that we're one Caribbean people, and that our stories, although might have different names, we might call flamboyant different things, is the same tree, and that we have a similar experience to it. So that's also another reason. But it's really important that we tell our stories and we hear each other. Mm-hmm. Other questions or comments? Yeah. I'm going to come to you and then go ahead. Go you first.
I wanted to know if, okay, let me say it this way. You mentioned holding things in your head. And then I also have a colleague who told me, yeah, there's a poem floating around my head, I put it down yet. Is there a danger to that, or is that also part of the process? When do you know when it comes out?
Well, it's part of the process. Sometimes you can lose it.
Yes.
Sometimes you can lose it in that there's a line or something that is brilliant and you didn't spend the time to write it down and you lose it. But I also think for me, as I said, as I've gotten older, I'm more able to keep things in my head longer, and that's part of my process. So I give the poem a chance to grow in my head. You know, it's a seed, and then it sprouts and it grows, and when it gets to a certain point, you do have to put it down or you will lose it. You know, if you have that tree that keeps bearing and it doesn't get watered and it doesn't get nurtured, then it is. But I think each of you have to find your own process. What works for you? It's not the same thing that works for me or for another writer. You know, this is also the thing where you think someone, a brilliant writer who's celebrated, can give you their method and it will work. It works for them. It's not necessarily going to work for you. Each of us have to discover what is our process of creation and how do we nurture that creation so that it multiplies. There was a question here from a young lady. Could you pass her the mic?
I would like to know what challenges do you encounter while writing?
Life! Oh gosh, I think there's many ways that question can be answered. So when my children were young, and thank God they're grown and on their own, one of the biggest challenge was motherhood, because I got divorced, and so, Mommy, you're late picking us up. Mommy, the dinner is late. Because if an idea came to me, then that was a big challenge. Always the challenge is finding the time or taking the time as a writer. You know, there are many writers here, and they might say the same thing, because we don't live off our books. I mean, our books take us places, but it's not our full. Very few writers, only 3% throughout the world, who actually live off the product of their books. They don't have to do anything else. So most of us are teaching or doing other things. And so it's a challenge to find the time and dedicate the time to that production. So that's a challenge. I am a very gregarious person. So the challenge is sitting my butt home. You know, not going to party or drink or having friends over, because I need to write. And I can't write with a distraction. So being a gregarious person could be a challenge, and that is a challenge. For me now, I'm an administrator. I run the Institute for Gender and Development Studies at the University at Nimona, and that just takes all my time. And by the time I go home, I'm so tired, I just want to lay down and look at the mountains. So I'm looking forward to the summer when I will take some time off to write. But the challenge is to honor the word and to honor the space and the time that is necessary in order to do it. And it's a lonely pursuit. I think that a writer has to be present in his or her environment. In other words, I don't think you can be a recluse, although some people have done that. But I think for those of us in the Caribbean, if we're writing about the Caribbean, we have to be present to what's happening. And then you have to retreat, of course, and give yourself that private and quiet time to do the work. Maybe there are 2 or 3 more questions, and then we have to stop. 2 more, I was told.
Well, this one isn't a question, but I really appreciate what you said earlier when you spoke about your mom, and you said that she told you, instead of, she said, I don't think, as opposed to you shouldn't, because it would kind of lessen your scope, and that to me allowed you to grow. And when we wrote down the 10 words that you gave us, when you said lie, the first thing came to me was secrets. And I'm kind of realizing the kind of struggles that me and my mom is going through right now. And I think when we have secrets, like if you have something that hurt you in the past, you have to speak to someone that you care about in order for you to get out, because it kind of hampers you and the relationship that you have with the person. So I felt that was very, I appreciate that you said that.
Thank you. One last question and we're done. In the back, because we haven't had, yes, young man, please come forward real quickly.
Good morning. Actually, 2 questions in one.
Okay.
First one, how do you overcome writer's block?
Doesn't exist. And I'll talk a little bit about that.
And does it actually enhance your writing?
What, writer's block?
Yes, after getting through the process.
Okay. Actually, I'd wanted one of these young people to ask a question. So my philosophy is writer's block doesn't exist. It was invented. And by that I say that we have a tendency to think that we should be always productive. I think our minds are always productive, but it doesn't always come on paper. So honest to God, there's a novel I've been writing for the last 10 years. But not a word has been on paper. It's going to get written before I'm dead. Right? So someone could say that is writer's block. I think like everything else, you know, some people try to get pregnant, some people just get pregnant. But that's another story. But some people try to get pregnant and they don't get pregnant, and they try and they don't get pregnant, and they might have to have artificial whatever, or they might just have to relax and they have a menopause baby. Because that's when it was ready to be birthed. So it's a long way of saying that for me, I don't worry about not writing, because I know I will always write, even when I'm not writing. And I believe that, and I grow things. In my next life, I'm going to be a farmer, and I'm starting to practice. So I'm growing things, and the process of growth, if you watch growth, then I think you'll understand better. You plant some seeds, some come up, some don't come up. You know, it might mean that the soil not fertile or the soil not ready or whatever. So all I'm saying to you is don't take it on. You have a story to write. It mightn't happen this month or next year, but if you are connected to that story and you believe in that story will come. Yeah. That story is going to come. So I don't worry about it. I haven't written a poem in a long time. You know, maybe 6 months. Maybe not that long. That's not true. I did write a kind of a poem for Mother's Day. Was it Mother's Day? Yeah. Yeah, for Mother's Day. But I don't worry about it. And I'm worried less now about the perfection of the work. I would labor. And it's not that I'm saying you should just spit something out, the first draft, because I don't necessarily do that. I don't do that. But I used to labor a long time over pieces, 5, 6, 7, 8 drafts, and then it would still not feel right. I don't do that so much anymore. So just allow yourself to be present to your writing self. Read not just words, but read the environment, listen to people. One of the activities I give my students is they have to do a couple exercises on eavesdropping. Some of the best things, especially in terms of dialogue, is about eavesdropping. I'm always listening to people's business, okay? Because I never know when some of somebody's business is going to come into a story or a poem. So listen to people's business. Just be observant. Be present in the world. Be present to the words that are not always written on the page, but they're written in your life and in your experiences. And I don't think you have to worry. I think you have amazing stories to tell, and that you should take the time to tell them. And I want to just thank you for coming, and I want to thank you for honoring and celebrating the book festival. It's an amazing thing that's happening here, and you're all a part of it. Thank you so much.
Professor Adisa, give her another round of applause. Thank you very much.